Welcome back to my channel, and thank you for your interest in this video. I'm certain you've looked at the title and you've wondered what this is about. Well, you're going to find out shortly. There is an outro on the back end of this story, but there's something I wanted to say before it got started. This is a story that it's a personal story, and it crosses over into numerous areas: education, life, family, and those kinds of things. The story is told with a bit of humor and a bit of snark and a bit of sarcasm, and it's 100% real. And while it was a point of contention between me and my father, I just wanted to say somewhere that yes, while it was a point of contention between me and my father, and while there was a philosophical difference, which you'll see, I just wanted to say that I love my father and I appreciate him and I appreciate everything he's done for us and for me, and he was an integral part of my growth and development, and he was an integral part of my growth and development as a student. And my science journey probably would not have taken place without him and some of his most fundamental teachings about life and education and success. So I will probably leave a few of my blog posts about some of his fundamental teachings in the description box below. But in the meantime, enjoy the story. All right, let's have some fun here. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Youssef Dunbar. I am the owner of this Big Discussions channel. I am its founder. I'm also the owner and the founder of the Big Words blog site. The information for my blog can be found on the banner for this channel, as can the contact info for all of my social media. So today is August 6th, 2019, so I'm doubling up tonight. I just made a video on the transferable skills you get from a degree in the sciences. And so I'm going to follow that up with something fun here. And this idea has been rolling around in my mind for a while, and sometimes when ideas are rolling around in your mind, the time comes for you to put pen to paper or to get in front of your video camera and to just do it. So I am a storyteller. First and foremost, I'm a writer, and that's my teaching style, that's my style. So pretty much anything of meaning that I try to teach, there's usually a story involved. And so I'm going to tell a fun story tonight for this video. And so as you could see, the title is Don't Tell People You're a Doctor. So this is another story from my past, and it involves my Ph.D. and it involves my father. So I've made videos involving my father before, and I made two around Father's Day. So I'm going to leave those in the description box. They were pretty popular, and so there are a lot of good stories that I could tell there from my family. And whenever I tell these stories from my family, I just want to say that I don't do these to make my family look bad. I don't do these to make myself look bad, but I think there are teachable elements in all of these stories that can maybe help out individuals like myself from my background, because in a lot of black slash African American families, the baby boomer generations, I'm sorry, the baby boomer generations, so those born in the 1950s, in the 1940s, those were first generation college students. And so there are unique dynamics when those baby boomers gave birth to us Gen Xers. So there are very unique parent-child dynamics between the boomers and the Gen Xers, and this story very much involves that. So the last blog post about the transferable skills, that in part came about from a discussion I had with my father. And I'm going to start this by saying that my father would cringe if he knew that I opened each of these videos by saying I'm Dr. Anwar Yusuf Dunbar. And I want to say that it's not something that I do out of arrogance, and it's not something that I do because I want to brag about my title and I'm Dr. So-and-so, you should respect me, you should bow at my feet. I don't do it because of that. I do it because less than 10% of STEM degree holders are black slash African American, and so I really think that part of my responsibility after earning my title is to be as visible as possible so that the next me or the next me's can be inspired and see someone who looks like them, and so that they could see that this can be done and so that they could do it. So I feel like hiding it and keeping it hidden to myself would really be doing a disservice. So that's why I start all my videos like that. So in my video about moving back in with parents, and I'm going to leave that in the description box below as well, I talked about some of the difficulties in moving in with my father, and I moved in with him during my postdoctoral fellowship after I left the University of Michigan's Department of Pharmacology. I moved there to do my postdoc, and so I moved to further my scientific career and to acquire a different set of skills, or should I say an additional set of skills. And when I first got there, something very interesting happened. And I realized, looking back at it in hindsight, it's something that he had thought about in detail before I moved there. And so he said to me, he said, "Son, when you move here, I wouldn't tell people you're a doctor." That's kind of how my dad talks. He says, "I wouldn't tell people you're a doctor." And I looked at him and I said, "Okay, well, what are you talking about?" He said, "When people hear that you're a doctor, they're going to expect you to drive a certain kind of car. They're going to expect you to dress a certain way. They're going to expect you to have a certain amount of money. So things, it might be just better to tell them that you're in the sciences. Maybe tell them that you work in a lab. But I wouldn't tell them that you're a doctor." So he was afraid that people would assume, I think, a certain amount of wealth, and they would assume that I was well off, that I was very well off because I had a doctor, because I have a Ph.D. and I'm a doctor. And that's why I'm very outspoken about the fact that degrees don't necessarily translate into wealth. So that's very I'm very, very big on that message. So, and I tell younger people that just because you're getting a Ph.D. or just because you're getting an M.D. or just because you're getting a J.D., that doesn't make you wealthy. There are specific choices that you have to make in order to become wealthy and rich. But he was afraid of that. You know what? I'll just cut to it. He was afraid of the women. He was afraid that women would view me as a bit of a cash cow and that they would come after me just for the money. He was afraid that some guys would be jealous of my accomplishment and maybe want to fight me. Maybe in some circles that's true. Maybe that happens. I had never thought about that, so I thought it was a bit odd. So, but, my dad isn't the only boomer who I've seen respond this way. I had a friend back in Buffalo who we grew up down the street from. And this woman was very smart, and she went ahead and got her PharmD. And I remember one time we were home on vacation, or we were home on break, and I went down the street to my friend's house, rang the doorbell, and I said, "Is so-and-so home?" And while my friend was getting ready, her mother poked her head out the door and said, "So-and-so's a doctor now." And I was like, well, okay, thank you for telling me that. So maybe it's a parent thing. Maybe it's the baby boomers. Maybe it's something that the baby boomers are very, very fascinated with when their children get doctorates and doctorate degrees of all kinds. I don't know, but I thought that was kind of odd that her mother would do that. So while my father thought he was doing the right thing, and he still thinks he's doing the right thing, there are often unintended consequences, as Dr. Thomas Sowell says. And one of the consequences of him saying that, and for the time being me following that advice, was that it prevented me from feeling proud of my accomplishment. And it prevented me from feeling the increase in self-esteem that would come with an accomplishment like that. I worked very hard those 5 to 6 years to get my doctorate, and I did some pretty good work, and I earned the thing, and now I'm being told to keep it quiet. So there were some unintended consequences. There were numerous effects to my father's fear-based toxic beliefs, because that's what they were, even though he was well-intentioned. One was that I struggled in the dating arena, and because I didn't have a strong personal belief in myself as a man. And as men, our accomplishments are everything, and our the things that we build and the things that we earn, those are huge for how we feel about ourselves and the men we become. So I didn't really get to feel that sense of power, that sense of personal power that would come with earning a PhD. Instead, I felt those same feelings of fear and trepidation that permeated through him. What I realized, especially after moving to Washington, D.C., where there are so many educated people and so many in my community where the women are flaunting their degrees and the women are flaunting their accolades and the women are flaunting their accomplishments, you as a man have to be able to hold your own. You have to have a strong feeling of self, and you have to be able to stand firm on your own accomplishments. And it's actually okay to be able to flex your muscles a little bit and to know that you belong and that you're okay and that you are worth something and that you are among the elite and that you have done something of your own, because you can get swallowed up in other people's accomplishments if you're hiding behind your own. In terms of money, as you know, one of my passions is financial literacy. You know, the Rich Dad books, The Millionaire Next Door, all of Dave Ramsey's materials. I'm very passionate about that stuff. And anyone who has studied the subject knows that a Ph.D. doesn't equal wealth and riches. I'll say that again. A Ph.D. does not equal wealth and riches. There are a lot of people who are doctors who are struggling out there, and they're not wealthy, and they don't have the lifestyles that you would consider doctors to have. Your doctorate just means that you have an expertise in a certain area, and hopefully it's one that's worthwhile and one that can earn you a decent income. My area of expertise is drug metabolism, inhalation toxicology. My thesis project was ubiquitination and proteasomal degradation of neuronal nitric oxide synthase. Working on that thesis project qualified me to become a doctor. And Dad and I had that discussion when I lived with him. He said one day, he said, "Your degree's in pharmacology, right?" And I said, "Yeah." "But you have a PhD." And I said, "Yeah." "Well, my PhD's in pharmacology, Dad." So a lot of times folks are just focused on being a doctor and they don't know what the degree is or what your area of expertise is. After I moved out with him and after being in a very toxic romantic relationship, I had to see a counselor, and he helped me to reprogram a lot of my thoughts and values, and that involved unprogramming some of the things that I had learned or internalized when living with my father. In my manhood journey, I read No More Mr. Nice Guy by Dr. Robert Glover. And a major part of that book was reclaiming your personal power. It was learning to set boundaries. It was learning that I only needed my approval and not the approval of others. And it was also learning that I could say no. And so if I started dating someone and I found out, hypothetically, that she was only after money, or she was pressuring me to spend and do things that I didn't want to do, I could say no. So even if I got myself into a sticky situation with someone who only cared about the fact that I was a doctor, I had the personal power to dissolve that partnership and remove myself from the situation. So that's a completely different thing from living in fear and feeling powerless versus experiencing your own personal power and knowing that you have the power to influence your circumstances, you have the ability to say no, and you have the ability to remove yourself from toxic situations, and you don't have to please anybody else. That's a huge one, because I was a real people pleaser in my 20s and most of my 30s. My mentor, I talk about him on my blog a little bit. He encouraged me to establish principles for my blog. So if you go to my blog and you click on the tab that says principles, that was because of my mentor. He was very encouraging of my accomplishment, and wherever we would go, he would introduce me as Dr. Dunbar, and he would encourage me to think highly and think happily about my accomplishment. And then finally, the reason I look this way is because there's a mosquito or something flying around here. Finally, I learned that while parents will always be our parents, sometimes you have to decide for yourself what the right thing is and then go your own way. Also, I learned from this, and by watching peers interact with their parents, sometimes parents can inadvertently become your own worst enemies, or they can end up competing with you, or they can end up envying your success because maybe they didn't have the same opportunities that you had, or they're just envious of your success. So there's a lot that I learned from this whole thing. But a big one, which I think every child ultimately has to learn, is that sometimes you just have to go your own way. You might disappoint somebody, but sometimes you just got to do it. So with that, I'm going to conclude this video, this ramble, this confessional, and I'm going to say that doctor is a blanket title, and it can have several meanings. And not all doctors, not all Ph.D.s are created alike. If you want to know, or if you want to get an idea of what a Ph.D. is, particularly in the sciences, see my last video about the transferable skills, and that will tell you something about why a Ph.D. in the sciences is what it is, what's unique about it, and why it's important. I will probably continue my science series with the applied sciences, so that will be the next one up. But I just wanted to, after I did the last one, God put it on my heart just to do this one, because this one has been rolling around in me for a while, and it's a very, very fascinating thing that someone would tell someone else not to use their title, not to announce who they are. And again, it's one of those things where, and I've said this on my channel before, two things can exist at the same time and they can be true. So in a way, what my father said was smart. Keep your title quiet, at least initially. just say you work in a lab. Don't tell them you're a doctor. But at the same time, it's an accomplishment, and it's something to be celebrated, and other the next generation needs to see more people like me. And it's not healthy to live in fear. It's not healthy to live your life thinking about what other people are going to do to you, and it's not healthy to think about other people scheming on you and other people looking to take what you have or to cause you harm. So it's better to think positive and to live life in a glass half full way as opposed to a glass half empty way. So with that, I'm going to conclude this video. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please like the video, please share it, please subscribe to the channel. My goal is to get to at least 100 subscribers by January 2020. I'm about 22 away, so please subscribe. With that, I will conclude. Always remember that your attitude determines your altitude. And with that, I will see you next time. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye. So I'm back with another outro here. And as I may have said in a previous video, when I do these outros, it's either because I have forgotten to say something in the main video, or I've thought of something else that I thought would add to my discussion. And so one of the things I want to say is that in the video I mentioned the generations. And so I described my father and people in his age group as the baby boomers. And one of my favorite YouTube content creators is Aaron Clarey, or Captain Capitalism, or America's Big Brother, or whatever. And Aaron is very outspoken. Well, he's very critical of the boomers, and he feels like they let us down in certain ways. But he's very outspoken in his videos about the differences between the baby boomers versus Generation X versus the millennials versus Generation Y and Generation Z and those kinds of things. So I'm a Gen Xer, and as I was thinking about that video after I shot it, I just realized that there are differences between the generations and differences between the baby boomers and their children, who are the Gen Xers. And I think that it's natural for parents and offspring to butt heads on things because society changes and values change, and parents have their experiences and children have their experiences, and the two don't always match up, and sometimes they butt and they conflict. So I thought about Aaron Clarey, and I thought that that definitely applied here. There are differences in the thought processes of myself and my brother and our parents, and just the generations in general. So in terms of that video, first of all, it's all true. That all did happen. He did tell me not to tell folks that I was a doctor. And if it seems like it was a bit much and it was a lot, well, yeah, it was. But it was, it was all real. But I wanted to once again say that, I don't tell these stories to embarrass my family or to disparage them or to embarrass myself or to make us all look bad. But I think that these are valuable lessons and valuable stories, particularly since I'm encouraging kids like myself to also get involved in the STEMs or to uplift themselves in certain ways. And when you do that, life just keeps on happening, and you deal with challenges out in the real world with other races and other ethnic groups, and then you deal with challenges within your own community and sometimes within your own family. So when I tell these stories, that's why I think, there are teachable lessons here, and while it's therapy for me, I think that these can benefit someone else and raise awareness, as Colin Kaepernick would say, and maybe prevent someone else from going through some of these things. So with that, I will conclude. Thank you for watching. Please like the video, please share it, and once again, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.